Good rising, brethren. This is Big Judah coming to you guys from California. Before I begin, give it all praise, Most High Yahweh, acknowledgement to Earthly Mother. Who is wisdom? Who is Holy Spirit? Acknowledge Yahweh Shai. I pray the Most High blesses this lesson this evening, gives more knowledge and understanding of the events of the past in order to understand events that are currently happening on the earth, so we get a much better understanding of the things that are soon to come on the earth. It's all been about disconnecting us from our heritage. That's what this has all been about. Fulfilling the prophecies of us being discontinued from our heritage. And the fact that no one wants to deal with that. It's always, whenever we bring up information, it's you're being racist, you're being hateful, it doesn't matter, it's all about love and everything else, but they never talk about how they have disconnected us from our heritage. Jeremiah 17:4, and thou, even thyself, shall discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. And that's exactly what happened to us. Still happening to this day. But the Holy Spirit is coming to bring all things back into remembrance. We're going to get into this book here real fast. The story of the American Indian, history illustrated, rare antique from 1887. As you can see, this book here costs about $2,550. And you always wonder, like, what in the heck is in these books? What are they trying to hide from us in these books? Well, when you have the Holy Spirit, she gives you knowledge, understanding. You can pick out the meat that is hidden in these books, and it can show you how they have discontinued us from our heritage, our lands, our birthright. So this is the book we have right here, The Story of the American Indian. Same one, just a different cover, by Elbridge, S. Brooks. I'm going to read the first little section here. Excuse me. The Story of the American Indian, Chapter 1, The Ancient American. In the great past, so says an Iroquois legend, Tirahuawaku, something like that, the Sky Holder resolved upon the creation of a race which should surpass all others in beauty, strength, and bravery. Did not the Most High create the Israelites and say that they were above all the other nations? Let's read that real fast. Deuteronomy 7:6. Deuteronomy 7:6. Okay. Hold on fast. Hold on fast. Hold on really quick. Well, you know what? We already know it. I'm not going to get into that right now. Let me just go ahead and just continue reading this real fast. Okay. We all know the scriptures already. Well, we'll just read it really quick since we already got it. Deuteronomy 7:6. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So again, for thou art a holy people, a separate people. The Most High was going to make a separate people to be away from all the others, okay? For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. And this goes with this American Indian legend, okay? So again, the skyholder resolved upon the creation of a race which should surpass all others in beauty, strength, and bravery. So from the bosom of a great island, and that's what we call this place, right? Turtle Island. It's a land all by itself, separate from the rest of the world, right? So from the bosom of a great island where they had previously subsisted upon moles, the skyholder brought into the daylight 6 perfectly mated couples who were set apart as the ancestors of the greatest of all peoples. Such, according to Iroquois legends, were the beginnings of the human race and the greatest of all peoples, who could look back to these 6 perfect pairs as their ancestors, okay, were presumably the historic red men of America. Now, you got to understand that they red men are referring to the people who were here originally, okay, not the people that you're seeing all of a sudden portrayed and paraded around now, okay. And they're going to let you know that there's a separation between the ones that they're going to show you and the ones that were here originally. Okay, so let's continue. Ever since the modern discovery of America, speculation has been rife as to the origin and intermediate history of the races of men that Columbus and Cortez and the Cabots and the John Smith, the Jesuits, and the Puritans found upon the shores and in the forests of the New World. Remember, there's a new world to them, okay? But speculation has led to little that is tangible. A mystery they are, a mystery they must remain until some truth grounded plan of ethnological reasoning, supported by an undeniable chain of archaeological and anthropological relics, shall be able to settle beyond dispute the beginnings of a race whose manners and customs suggest those of every nation of civilized antiquity, and yet can positively be traced to none. Now, they act like they have to have all this proof in order to just make sure they can just they have to know everything, which they don't do that now. They make all these speculations and they just portray all of these theories as facts. But to talk about who was here at first, they need all these facts to make it undisputable. But yeah, I'm sure they had plenty of facts, but they tried to burn all the books and hide all the information that they wrote themselves to tell you who they were. Okay. Now, check this part out because they always try to make sound like this is a new world, but we know that this is the old world. That America is the oldest of existing lands. Many wise geologists confidently assert that a certain prehistoric and apparent semi-civilization prevailed upon the North American continent hundreds of years ago. The silent ruins of giant mounds, tenantless temples, and forest covered cities indisputably attest that this possible civilization antedates the race of red men known to us and to our forefathers is apparent. So they already let you know there was a race here before the red men that they are talking about, the natives that they made a covenant with, the natives that they did the whole blood quantum thing with. That there was a race of people that was here before them. And we already know that that was us. That's why they've had to change who we are. That's why they give us black and Afro American and African American. They had to discontinue us from our heritage. That is why in Revelation 11, when our dead bodies were laying in the street, they were all partying it up. They were having a great time, sending gifts back and forth, living lavishly, enjoying the dainties of our lands. But now that's all coming to an end quickly. But that's why they always make it sound like these are all prophecies are going to happen in the future because they don't want the world to know that they've already gotten the bag. They've already enjoyed their blessing. So again, that America is the oldest of existing lands, many wise geologists confidently assert that a certain prehistoric and apparent semi-civilization prevailed upon the North American continent hundreds of years ago. The silent ruins of giant mounds, tenantless temples, and forest-covered cities indisputably attest that this possible civilization antedates the race of red men known to us and to our forefathers is apparent. But just how absolute a race connection existed between our historic red men and their prehistoric forerunners is still an unsolved problem. It's not a really unsolved problem when you have gone out of your way to hide anything that will go back to us being the people. When you changed our designation, you changed our ethnicity. You've given our ethnicity to another group while hiding who we were originally by pretty much attributing everything that we are to Africa. That's why all this stuff has been done. So they could have stolen our inheritance for themselves and left us with absolutely nothing. Now it says, certain it is that this older civilization, however cultured or however questionable it may have been, went down in ruin before the resistless assaults of savagery. As cruel as they were barbarous, these savage wanderers, veritable Huns of America, decimated and dispersed the now unknown builders of mound and temple and city, and their conquest complete, roamed at will over the grass-grown ruins they had made, hunters and harriers all, until in logical course, an avenging civilization coming from the east made them in turn the hunted and the harried. It is the story of this strange and interesting race, the red men of North America, mistakenly called Indians, that these pages seek to tell. Now, so they're trying to try to tell you about the ones that they have designated as being the natives, but they're going to try to be to skip over everything else. They always say that they have said all these things were already here and that they never built them. But then no one wants to take that next step as to who built these things. How did they build these things? How do they have the technological know-how to be able to build these things? They didn't want to know. They don't want the world to know because they have stolen the heritage of the Israelites. Going back to Jeremiah 17:4. We didn't lose it. You guys took it. You guys took it for yourselves. And then portray yourselves as the ancient people. But we already know that's all fallen flat on its face with the whole blood quantum and everything else, and the way that you got us off the rolls, and you put yourselves on the rolls by paying $5, and all of the crooked things that you guys have done to make it seem, if you had any kind of black blood in you, if you were mixed, you were considered Negro. If you had a speck of Negro blood, you're a Negro. But if you were white and Indian, you're considered Indian, in order for you to be able to steal our heritage. You got the picture right here. The oldest of existing lands, talking about the Americas. And they knew about this in the 1880s. They were well aware about the Americas being the ancient land. India superior. They were well aware of that. Okay? So then we go, hey, who was here before these red men? Who was here before these so-called natives? And we've already used this many a times. That's why this is in like the first edition. This is again from 1880. So they were aware already. They want to make it sound, it was such a mystery. Who was here before the red men? Who was here before? They already knew. That's why they hide all these pictures and they hide all this information, because they already knew who was here before. It says, without Atlantis, how can we explain the fact that the early Egyptians were depicted by themselves as red men on their own monuments? And on the other hand, how can we account for the representations of Negroes on the monuments of Central America? So they already knew that we were already here. That's why they took all these pictures out of the later editions of these books. Desiree Charnay, now engaged in exploring those monuments, has published in the North American Review for December 1880. Okay, so about 7 years before this book was even published. Photographs of a number of idols exhumed at San Juan de Teotihuacan, from which I select the following strikingly Negroid faces. So these faces were already there. So they were well aware that the so-called Negroes were the Americans, the original Americans, the original people of the lands. They already knew this, but they went out of their way to hide all of it. And says Dr. Le Plengjian says, besides the sculptures of long bearded men seen by the explorer at Chichen Itza, there were tall figures of people with small heads, thick lips, and curly short hair, or wool, regarded as Negroes. We always see them as standard or parasol bearers, but never engage in actual warfare. So, like I said, these are all well aware of who was already here. The following cut is from the court of the palace of Palenque, figured by Stevens. Okay, the face is strongly Ethiopian. The figure below represents a gigantic granite head found near the volcano of Tuxtla in the Mexican state of Veracruz at Caxacpa. The features are unmistakably Negroid. As the Negroes have never been, no, we're not going to get into that, how they try to explain all that stuff. But it is what it is. It's showing you who were the people before the so-called red man that they want to talk about. That's why they made a covenant with the Europeans, because they were just taking up, they get to play the role of us for a time. But now that time is over with, and the Most High is now raising up his people once again. And here's your pictures of Palenque where they found these statues with these Negroid features. I always wondered how people who barely came in way later seem to think that you have to go to them in order to, get pretty much, identified as being a native. Get the approval of the colonizers. You got to get their approval to say who was here, who the original inhabitants were when they weren't even here, when they had nothing to do with this place. They're absolutely beautiful. These like majestic places right here. Again, they found Negroes that they found here. Those are the kind of statues they found, and they have hidden them since. So, you want to know the truth, look at what they're hiding. And they're hiding who was the original people in these areas. And that's why now the Most High is bringing all this information out, and it's bringing shame to these people. And it's going to continue to. People who made a covenant with the colonizers are going to be shamed as well. All praise, Most High Yahweh. Acknowledgement to Earthly Mother. Who was wisdom? Who was the Holy Spirit? Acknowledge Yahweh Shai. Shalom.